From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Brad Turner, in today for Erin O'Toole. The Colorado Rockies are wrapping up their worst season in franchise history, and the second worst season on record for any baseball team in the modern era. So today, we're talking about an idea that might hold potential to change the team's fortunes in future seasons. A routine part of the Rockies' misfortunes is the fact that Coors Field sits a mile above sea level. Baseballs fly further here, which means more home runs. It also means pitches like curveballs have less curve to them, which makes life harder for the pitchers. Colorado Sun reporter John Ingold recently looked into a possible solution, using baseballs with raised seams to increase the air resistance on fly balls and make playing at Coors Field similar to what players experience at other ballparks. John joined me to talk about how it might work and the science of playing baseball at this altitude.
I'm a Colorado Rockies fan, grew up in Colorado Springs, went to games in their first season at the old Mile High. I've been going to Coors Field for decades now, and obviously really just interested in the team itself, but also interested in the science of baseball here at a mile above sea level and trying to understand the way in which it makes it harder for the Rockies to win and to consistently play successful baseball compared to any other team in any other city in the league.
Right. Let's talk about playing baseball in the Mile High City. You write about how the altitude at Coors Field often works against the Rockies, and that can be seen in comparison to their performance when they play on the road. What happens to the Rockies hitting and pitching when they play at ballparks closer to sea level?
Right. So we know what happens when they play up here, when they play at altitude, right? The balls fly farther, curveballs move less, fastballs actually also move less. You don't think of a fastball as being a movement pitch, but they have sort of this like optical illusion rise to them that is less up here in Denver. When you go to sea level, suddenly everything resets, and now it's moving as normal. And so the hitters suddenly are facing curveballs that are curving a lot more. They're facing fastballs that seem to be rising a lot more. So there's been some analysis done on this kind of Coors Field hangover effect of what happens when the Rockies go on the road. There was a stretch of games that the Rockies played not too long ago where they had a 4-game series against the Dodgers, one of the best teams in Major League Baseball, right? Like potential World Series winners again this year. And they split the series here at home in Denver. And then they went on the road. They played in Pittsburgh, the Pirates, not a good team. And they got absolutely blown out in those 3 games. They scored like 1 run over the entire 3 games. So you can see how that hangover effect also impacts the team when they go on the road. They have to make adjustments that other teams don't.
So that brings us to your solution. So explain how the flatness or the height of the seams on a baseball affects how far the ball will travel when a batter hits a fly ball.
Yeah, so aerodynamics are a wild thing. Small changes can have a huge impact. And you can think of this if you were driving your car down the road and the difference in gas mileage you would get between if you're doing 70 miles an hour down the highway and you have the windows closed versus 70 miles an hour down the highway with the windows open. Just that small change is going to create enough drag on your car that it's going to have a measurable impact on your gas mileage. And the seams are the same kind of thing on a baseball. Major League Baseball uses a ball that has flat seams. They're very smooth. You kind of just slip right over them on your fingers. That ball flies farther, like demonstrably, than a baseball with raised seams. I talked to a couple guys who are professors who study the physics of baseball. One is a professor emeritus at the University of Illinois named Alan Nathan. I also talked to a gentleman named Lloyd Smith, who is a professor at Washington State University. They both have done a lot of research for Major League Baseball on some of the physical properties of the equipment used. And they, a few years ago, did a study where they took a custom-made pitching machine that they had made to produce sort of a consistent result each time when they launched a baseball. They took it down to Houston, which has a domed stadium. They did it in winter with the roof closed, so no air current impacts or anything like that. And they just started launching like all these different baseballs into the outfield and then measured based on their seam height how far they flew. And they found this this tremendous impact. In one version of doing the test, they found that baseballs that like Major League Baseball uses, the flat seamed balls, flew 8.4% farther than the raised seam baseballs. This is a ball that used to be used in the college game that they tested. The difference in seam height is like maybe a half a millimeter, maybe a little bit more. So it's not huge. But that 8.4% in that test produced a difference of 9.1 meters in how far those balls flew on average, which is nearly 30 feet.
Yeah, that's the difference between a fly ball and a home run in
Absolutely.
a lot of ways, right?
Yep.
Wow. And just so I understand how this affects pitching, how does seam height affect a pitcher's ability to throw a curveball at a mile above sea level?
So higher seamed baseballs that are less aerodynamic, they're sort of grippier in the air. If it's thrown with the same amount of spin as a low seam ball, it will move more.
So it grips the air and the curveball curves more.
Absolutely. It's just less aerodynamic. So it has higher drag and produces greater lift. And absolutely, when the ball's spinning in the air, that lift coefficient is what creates movement in the pitch.
So you've identified the problems. How do you get baseballs with flatter seams? Is it simply a matter of manufacturing some of the balls differently?
It is. So as I mentioned, there are raised seam baseballs that get made, and there are raised seam baseballs that were used in college baseball for a long time. About a decade or so ago, college moved away from that because they wanted to create more home runs in the college game. So they went to a flat seamed ball, and it worked. They created more home runs. So that's also sort of a natural experiment that shows what we're talking about here. So it's really just a manufacturing process, and that sort of is one of the first roadblocks that you would have to face in how you actually implement this. Rawlings, which is the official manufacturer for Major League Baseball, they make all their Major League balls at a factory in Costa Rica. They're all made to a same standard of quality, same standard of hardness, same standard of like uniformity and roundness. The raised seam balls that were used in college or that are still made today are manufactured in China. So this produces a question of, are they really the same ball? Would they have the same level of quality? How would you actually implement this?
Another hurdle, I guess, is Major League Baseball itself. Would the league let a team use different baseballs than other teams use at their stadiums?
This is what the physicist Alan Nathan mentioned to me. He said, baseball has had such a hard time over the years convincing people that it's not trying to juice the baseball, that it's not making these secret tweaks to the ball to produce specific results, that if you actually did then introduce this different ball that was designed to produce different effects, that would be something they probably would look down upon. There's also a concern that the raised seams might produce blisters for pitchers that might actually cause blister injuries. So realistically, is this going to happen? Yeah, maybe not. But I think for us and for me, what was fun about doing this is it's like the Rockies, I suppose in theory they could get worse, but they were on the verge this year of being the worst team all time in modern Major League history. Right. You might as well start throwing out some wild ideas to figure out how we can fix them.
John Ingold of the Colorado Sun wrote about how baseballs with flatter seams might be the answer to making the Colorado Rockies more competitive next season. We'll have a link to his article in our show notes and at KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Brad Turner. Thanks for listening.